Awesome, Mike. Okay, no, thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, and thanks everyone who took the time to join us today. It's my pleasure to welcome Mike Frenette to this conversation. I have known Mike for many years. We worked together uh, a, a while ago, and I have always been a big fan of Mike. When we worked together many years ago, Mike was already leading the PMO community that we had at that organization, and it was always a joy for me to be listening to Mike and learning from him. So I'm very happy to be talking to you today, Mike, about your career, your journey, right? But especially this special PMI Excellence Distinction Award that you just won in the PMI Global Summit in Los Angeles last month, right? So it's a pleasure, and of course everybody here has joined us because they want to know what you have done at Halifax Water, right? So they can perhaps try to replicate your steps and replicate the success that you have had in the organization. But Mike, let's kick this off here, and I'm not going to try to introduce yourself, Mike, because you have a very long career. So you have done so much in your career. You have been a PMI volunteer for over 25 years now, which is amazing. So why don't you tell us what you have done and your experience being a PMI volunteer for so many years?
Sure. I'll try to keep it short. It'll be a little bit difficult, but I've been in the business for a long time. I actually, when I finished college in Nova Scotia, I started working as a computer operator for a university. And then I moved to a utility and worked there as a programmer and then a systems analyst. And I moved out west to work for Nova Corporation as a database analyst and a data designer. And then my wife at that time decided she wanted to move back to Nova Scotia to raise our two kids that we had out there. And so at that point, I became an accidental project manager. Now, you might say, well, what do you mean by that? I had a contact who at a consulting firm who said, yeah, we'd like to bring you back. We'll pay for your move. How would you like to manage a project for the court system in Nova Scotia? I was never one to say no. So I said yes. And I did move back to Nova Scotia. And I did manage the system for the court project. And really, it was a combination of technical expertise on my side and the awesome team that I had that made us through, that put us through successfully on that project. A little bit of luck in there as well. So that was with a consulting firm. Previously, I had worked with an electrical utility and then oil and gas, as I mentioned, in Alberta, and then back home with this consulting firm. So it worked out well. Sometime during that stage in my life, I learned about PMI because to that point, I knew nothing about PMI, I knew nothing about the PMBOK. And there was a fellow from Chicago named Ed Bottrell who had moved to Nova Scotia. And he realized there was no PMI chapter here, and he started one. And that's how I became involved in PMI. That's how I found out about the PMBOK. And at that time, I read it and I said, wow, there's actually a discipline to managing projects. It's not just seat of the pants. And that's why I call myself an accidental project manager. I fell in love with the PMBOK. I said, where have you been all my life? I joined the PMI board. I became a PMP because I was embarrassed to be president without one. And I've been a PMP and managing projects using PMP since then. So I won't go into all the gory details of the various jobs I've had. I'm not here to bore everybody, but there were a number different organizations and a couple of different consulting firms. And it's probably a full circle moment when I started working for Halifax Water, another utility, because I started working with an electrical utility in my career when I moved from being an operator. So here I am at Halifax Water. I joined as an accidental project manager, become a professional project manager because of PMI. And at that point in time, I became an accidental PMO manager. I won't mention that my sister was born 11 months before I was. So there are all kinds of accidents that happen in life. And that was one for me. That was an early one, accidental project manager, accidental PMO manager. And I have to say, I set up my PMO based on PMI's portfolio, systems, program, well, I should say methodologies, program methodologies and project methodologies. I hired PMPs into the organization. I convinced Halifax Water that PMI was the authority, and they are globally, on everything having to do with project management. And I set up my PMO based, actually fairly closely based on what I set up with that consulting firm you and I both worked for, Bruno and Sue. And it worked out well. You know, one click, drill down, look for tools, templates. All the professional project managers I hired were very familiar with PMI. And basically set up the PMO at Halifax Water. I was hired there as a project manager, senior project manager. And after they created, which this preceded my joining them, they created a roadmap, a 5-year roadmap of about $50 million worth of projects. And I was really the only person who could implement that because there just wasn't anybody else on staff. So it was at that point when my manager came to me and said, "What do you think about this roadmap, Mike? Can you get it going?" So I went from having 2 people in my organization to, well, I have about, depending on who you count, 35 to 40 people in the organization now, delivering on that 5-year strategic roadmap. So that's sort of a brief overview of me and all the accidents I've had along the way, all very happy accidents. And I have to say that, you know, there's probably a few PMI people on this call and maybe a few who are not PMI people. And I always have said that I've had 2 jobs. One was paid and the other wasn't. But, you know, I say the PMI job's not paid, but I have to tell you, being paid in cash is not always the only way to be paid. And I have a huge global network of friends and colleagues because of PMI. And I would recommend anybody on this call who's not a member of PMI to become a member and to get involved with the chapter, with the local chapter, and then you can get involved with PMI Global, look for global opportunities. There's so much you can do. It's the best professional organization I've belonged to, and I've belonged to quite a few in my career.
That's awesome, Mike. And you know, it's interesting. You're talking about your journey at Halifax Water, right? Going from 2 people in your team to over 35 now. So can you just give us a little bit of context around your PMO, right? How many people you have today? What is the structure of your PMO, right? The verticals, maybe some PMOs have governance, analytics, delivery, right? So if you can tell us a little bit about that, that would be great. And the types of projects that you guys typically manage as well. That would be helpful.
So the roadmap was broken down into themes, like the customer was one of the themes, operational excellence is another theme, infrastructure was a theme. The projects were all related to these themes. When we first started, I think we had, let me see, I put out an RFP. We selected PMs who were PMPs, with the exception of one who is also an excellent project manager. And we started executing projects, one of which was to set up the PPM repository, the project management repository of tools, templates, instructions, samples. It's the go-to place for anybody who's working in the PMO. You know, how do I do a project charter? What does a project charter look like? So, show me a sample of some excellent project charters. Show me the processes around funding. Do I have to issue this report to the general manager, or would I do a project funding report and so on? That was all in the PPM repository, which was the very first project we started. Interestingly enough, a lot of other projects started concurrent with that. So in a sense, we were developing the PMO while projects were being executed. And really, one might think that was a problem, but because I had hired project managers who were professional project managers, PMPs, I didn't have to worry about them not knowing about the processes. All I had to worry about was fitting those processes into the Halifax water culture, because in any organization there are processes that belong to the organization, and you can't just force feed processes from a third party, even if it's industry standard, like PMI, down the throats of an organization. That doesn't work. So you have to dovetail everything in together. And that's what we did. You asked about how we're organized. It's really, we have leads at this point in time. And it's evolved. It wasn't like this in the beginning. It's evolved. We have a business analyst lead. We have a change management lead. We have a technical lead, and we have a project manager lead. So it's by role. Now, you mentioned the communities that I set up at the consulting firm. This is like communities for the PMO. So these folks meet periodically as a group of business analysts, as a group of change managers. They talk about change management things and business analyst things. It's a way to bring people together and get the conversation going. Of course, that's not the only thing we do. We have meetings of the group. We celebrate successes of projects and so on. So that's really the structure. Those people all report to me. I have like 8 staff who are employees, and I have about 25 or 30 consultants who obviously are not employees. They are project managers, business analysts, change managers, technical people, and so on.
Okay. That's very helpful to understand, Mike. And in this, let's say, in this journey, right, when you first joined Halifax Water as a senior PM, right, to this point now that you are the manager of the PMO, were they using Agile and Hybrid delivery methodologies at that point, or what it was something that you introduced after you joined the organization?
Yeah. So in an organization like a utility, where many of the projects are engineering projects, like building a water plant, like installing a piece of motorized equipment somewhere, like planning the infrastructure out for the next 50 years. It's not an agile type of organization. So when I set up the PMO, I thought to myself, can I do agile stuff? And I said no to myself. I said, we are going to have to set this up initially as a predictive type of PMO. And that's what we did. And even today, if you look at our processes, they look more predictive, more waterfallish. I don't like that term. I prefer predictive than agile. But we have a project to bring it all together. The reason the PPM repository of processes and templates and so on doesn't look agile is for that reason. We set it up as waterfall. But why are we looking at agile, and why have we started being agile? Why have we started being hybrid is the question. And it's because you can't not be agile. You can't not be hybrid in many ways. Even when I thought our projects were waterfall or predictive, they were actually hybrid. One of our very early projects was to develop software. And I have to say, we do not develop software in most of our projects. Most of it, the package implementations is essentially what it is. So one might say, well, why would you use, say, a Scrum methodology, one of the agile methods, in something that was not developing software? And we'll probably talk about that later, but there are all kinds of things in Agile and Scrum that would benefit any project. So in that early project, I got a little off track there that we started. It was actually a development project. And it was to create the customer portal that would allow our customers to, typical things, look at your bill, disconnect, connect, get alerts on things going, even alerts on traffic events that are going to happen in your neighborhood because they're ripping up the street, and so on. The company that developed that for us was Agile. So essentially, we were not forced, but happy to be agile on that project. And note that all of the project managers I hired knew about agile and predictive methods. So they were okay going with it as well. When and as that was a success, we started looking at agile methods and ceremonies. Almost naturally, it almost grew organically. So we started using Trello for card walls. Many of the project managers started having daily stand-up meetings. Individuals of the team would move their cards when they were starting work to the start at work column, to the finished work when they were finishing the work or ready for testing, and so on. So we started having sprint planning, sprint retrospectives, and so on. So it was a natural progression, and I have to say, an organic, natural sort of progression into any sort of a methodology is far better than creating a methodology or trying to use a methodology and forcing everybody to use every step in the methodology and, I don't know, flay them when they don't. Probably not a good idea. Do what's right for the project. Do what's right for your stakeholders. Deliver the value that your stakeholders expect from your PMO and from your projects. Methodologies almost don't matter, and I could probably be assassinated for saying that. I'm sure there are some agilists on the call who would not be happy to hear that. I would say examine PMI's disciplined agile methods. Examine the approaches of setting up the way of working for your projects when the project starts. Do not pick up a methodology and start following it step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because that is the probable route to failure. And I've forgotten by now what the question was, so I
apologize. No, this was great, Mike. So, Mike, today, what is the ratio of projects following an agile approach at Halifax Water, and how many of them are now following, let's say, a waterfall approach?
I would say there are no projects that are purely predictive.
Okay.
And at this time, there might be 2 projects that are purely agile.
Mm-hmm.
There are about, I'm going to guess, 18 projects in execution right now, which is not unusual for any given point in time. The rest of them are hybrid. They're using the agile approaches and the agile ceremonies that make sense for them. And I mean, what else could you do? I think it was Jim Highsmith who introduced the concept of Scrum Butt. Have you heard of Scrum Butt?
No.
Yeah, that's butt with 1 T. So okay. we have, he said he didn't like that people would say, yeah, we're using Scrum, we're agile, we're using Scrum, but we don't have daily stand-ups. We're using Scrum, but we don't have a product backlog. We're using Scrum, but we have 3-month-long sprints. So you can see how that would upset someone who created or had a big hand in creating the methodology. And that was called Scrum Butt. And the essence of what he said, and I hope it was Jim Highsmith, I hope I'm not dissing someone who didn't actually say this, but it was one of the ones who created Scrum. He was basically saying, if you have any buts, then you're not Scrum, you're not Agile. And I don't agree. I'll say it again, do what's right for your project to be able to deliver the value you told your stakeholders you would deliver. Have a look at the benefits realization guide. Full disclosure, I had a hand in writing it for PMI. There's a lot in that about value in the form of expected benefits. What benefits will your project deliver? Who wants the benefits? Who will make sure that the benefits accrue after the project is finished? Because as everybody on the call here probably knows, when you create product from a project to deliver benefits, to create the value for the user, for the stakeholders, you may not get the benefits the day the project ends. So how do you make sure that the benefits accrue? And that's all in the benefits realization guide, and it's related to value, which is related to the PMO value ring that we'll talk about, I'm sure, a little bit later in the call.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, it was great, Mike. So talking about value realization, Mike, at what point your team is identifying benefits for your projects, right? And how do you make sure that throughout the life cycle of that project, you're still, checking and making sure that the benefits still make sense for the organization, right? And at the end, how you guys are doing benefits realization, right? Is this something that the PMO is supporting the business to make sure that the benefits of those completed projects have been realized, or is up to the business to track that? And I would expand this question as well, asking you, have you seen any projects at Halifax Water, maybe in other organizations as well, where you check and realize that, this project doesn't make sense anymore. We are not going to realize those benefits. Therefore, it's better if we stop the project.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. What's the next question? No, I'm just kidding. No. That's a very complex question. How do you know what benefit your stakeholders want from a project? It all starts with the glimmer in someone's eye who says, we should do this. Let's manage it as a project out of the PMO. Okay, so that is not a business case. That is someone with a good idea. Or maybe it's someone with an idea. No one knows if it's good or bad. We have something called Really Good Ideas, RGIs. People can go in and fill in a form and say, this would benefit my area in the business. So this could be coming from, someone who's doing the work out there. We look at that and we say, okay, let's get the right people together, do a business case. A big part of doing a business case is obviously what are the benefits, along with, the ROI and the costs, the value, and so on. So the project hasn't even started yet. So that's a PMO activity, partly. And we also have a strategic arm. It's not formal, where these things come in and we do the business case. We have a business analyst who goes out and does a business case. The reporting lines probably don't matter. So I'm sort of telling you what happens as opposed to what the PMO does and what the PMO doesn't do. PMO knows about RGIs, and they know about the strategic roadmap where all the projects live. And they know when an RGI results in a project that gets inserted into the current year roadmap or into future year roadmaps. So this allows input and allows identification of the benefits and identification of the value that's expected from a particular project. So to carry on with, how do we make sure the value is delivered? A project manager knows the benefits that are to be delivered. There should be a benefits register. What benefits do we want to deliver from this project? What have we committed to? The project may deliver some of the benefits, but that is actually unusual because the project ends and the team disbands and they go on to the next project. The project manager has to identify who is it that will make the benefits accrue. And we call that a benefits owner. A benefits owner is likely someone in the business who came up with the idea in the first place, or someone in the business who has the management of the organization that will use the products of the project to make sure the products are used. I mean, anybody ever put something in from a project and no one used it? It happens all the time. So the business person or group who suggested the project and said we will accrue all these benefits in the end is responsible for making sure that the benefits accrue by making sure that the products of the project are high quality and as expected, and that they are used by those in their organization. That's the benefits owner. What can the project manager do besides identifying the benefits owner? Maybe set up checkpoint meetings with the benefits owner, the project sponsor, the project owners, other key stakeholders in advance, and say, we are going to convene in 6 months, and the benefits owner is going to tell us how the product of the project is being used and whether the benefits are accruing, because there could very well be metrics around whether the benefits are accruing or not. And you can set it up that way. So identify the benefits, register the benefits, identify the benefits owner, set up a follow-up after the project's finished. That's all around benefits, and benefits, of course, relate very closely to value.
That's excellent, Mike. And it's interesting because you are describing a very structured approach, right? And a lot of people have this misconception that agile is for not having that much discipline, right? And sometimes it's really, oh, we don't need all this documentation. Let's just get things done, right? And so I just want to understand a little bit, Mike. I'm sure that you face challenges to introduce agile and the hybrid delivery approach at Halifax Water, right? It's always a challenge. So can you tell us a little bit about the challenge that you have to overcome, and which strategies you use to do that, and what is the result that you have seen at Halifax Water since you guys start following this more disciplined approach?
Well, when you're dealing with an approach that says choose your way of working, if the project manager and their team choose to use a predictive approach, that's what they do. If they choose to use an agile approach, that's what they do. We didn't go in as a PMO and say, you must do this, you must do that. So did we face challenges in implementing some of the agile methods and the agile ceremonies? I don't think we faced huge challenges because we let it flow organically. If you don't see the value in something that you're being asked to do, then there shouldn't be someone who tells you to do it anyway. There should be someone who explains the value to you, and then maybe you'll want to do it. And that's kind of a fuzzy answer. I know it was a direct question. What challenges have you faced? And, I don't really have a list of challenges we faced trying to implement hybrid and agile strategies into the PMO. And I think I say that because the PMO is populated with some very professional people who want to do what's right for the project that they're running and what's right to deliver that value and those benefits.
Okay. No, this is excellent, Mike. And I just want to remind everyone who is joining us today that you can put your questions in the Q&A panel, and I'll be glad to ask Mike about those questions as well. But let's keep going here, Mike. So one of the key factors, of course, for a successful PMO, right, regardless if we're using agile, hybrid, or a waterfall approach, is really this active support, right? And also the support from the team as well, right? And you just said that you you grew your team from 2 PMs to over 35, right? And this comes with, some trust from the executive team, but also results that are coming from the PMO, right? You guys are delivering value. So can you tell us a little bit more about the support that you get from the executive team, and if there was any resistance to the expansion of the PMO at first, and how did you overcome that?
Sure. First of all, it's not 35 project managers. I just want to clarify
Okay.
that point.
Yeah.
We're talking about 35 people delivering. It might be, depending on who you count and when, between 8 and a dozen project managers. So actually, I think Halifax Water is very fortunate as far as organizations go in terms of projectizing the organization, or I might now say PMO-izing the organization. The executive team was involved in creating the very first 5-year strategic IT roadmap. They created it. They wanted it delivered. So how do you satisfy your executive team when you're delivering 50 projects in a 5-year roadmap? Well, first of all, you have to deliver the projects that are in the roadmap if you want to satisfy your executive. Secondly, you need to keep your executive team aware of how it's going on the projects. So we set up a dashboard, a usual dashboard with traffic lights at first in a bunch of different categories, KPIs. And we met with the executive team on something called the ITSPC, IT Strategic Planning Committee, monthly. And any indicators that appeared red on that dashboard would be the project related to those would be discussed. And we talk about why it's red or yellow. But they usually weren't that interested in items that were yellow. That's a caution. PM is professional. They'll probably fix it and won't let it go red. But if it goes red, let's talk about it. So they created the roadmap, really. The PMO delivered the roadmap, and we kept them aware of what was going on with every project in the roadmap. Every project in the roadmap had a projected start and end date. When a project didn't start, we would often hear from a member of the executive saying, there were supposed to be 2 projects start on the 1st of this month, and it's now the 28th. What happened? Oh, well, we didn't have the resources to do it. Other projects ran over. Those 2 projects were not priority. All of the projects are ranked, by the way. So if a project needs resources, we will shut a project down if it's lower ranked and we don't have the resources. But we've been fortunate in that we can get resources. So if it's an important project, it must start. We don't have the resources, we'll go procure them. Procurement was a huge part of this. So executives were involved from the very beginning. To the point, and I take this as a feather in the cap of the PMO, where we essentially delivered almost everything in the 5-year strategic plan. Now, a lot of people thought, great, let's move on, get rid of the PMO. We don't have 2 projects anymore because we delivered everything in the plan. And that was early thinking. But the value of the PMO, I think, was proven. And as a result, at the end of the delivery or near the end of the delivery of the 5-year strategic plan, guess what happened? We have a second 5-year strategic plan, strategic roadmap. This time it has, I don't know, in the order of 67 projects in it. And it's probably worth, I don't know, $60 some odd million. To me, that's a sign of success. Anyway, the question is about executive engagement. I think I touched on everything I thought I would touch on there.
Excellent. So, Mike, of course, we are talking about all the successes you have had, right, and the challenges you had to overcome. But I'm sure throughout this journey, right, you guys made mistakes as well, right? So, if you could look back and change something on your approach, maybe. What would you do? What are those mistakes that you think that you made and you would do differently today?
I think it relates to executive engagement.
Mhm.
Yes, we engaged the executive, but did we engage them the right way? Is there a better way to engage the executive team? Now, when I set up the PMO, I was not aware of the PMO Global Alliance. And frankly, I heard rumblings about it, but I didn't pay attention to it. The reason for that is if you hook yourself into a non-PMI wagon, and then PMI starts pulling another wagon, then it's kind of like my volunteer boss was PMI. I didn't want to go do something else that was not PMI. Now, fortunately, PMO Global Alliance was acquired by PMI, and that happened last December. So now PMO Global Alliance is owned by PMI, and PMI is about to release the PMO practice guide in Istanbul in December, and that sounds like an ad. I don't mean it to be. I'm just very excited about the fact that this thing is coming out. It's very closely related to the PMO value ring methodology, but it has a PMI wrapper around it. You'll all see it in December. And I don't know that much about it. I know a few things, but I won't talk about it because it's not released. It's a methodology I think everybody should get into. So where was the mistake? We talk about business cases for projects.
Mhm.
That's a micro view of value. I think one has to take a macro view of value. You have to engage your executives, and you have to separate PMO from portfolio program and project. They are two different things. A PMO is a functional organization. It has a function. The function of the PMO is to deliver to everything, to make sure you have the team that can deliver, to make sure that you're marching to the values expressed by the executive team. And you might say, yeah, well, Mike, you were doing that, weren't you? You had benefits identified. You named benefits owners. You tracked benefits. It's a different thing. Project benefits. It's that.
Mhm.
PMO values is that. So anyone who's familiar with the PMO GA's value ring methodology will know that one of the very first steps in that methodology is to ask executives, what are the 5 top values that you want your PMO to deliver? And the values are not some random set of things. You don't go to the executive team and say, hey, we're setting up a PMO. What do you want us to, what values do you want? No, you say, there were hundreds of people who ran PMOs. They got together and they said, what functions can a PMO do? So you've got a functional organization. What are the functions it's delivering, it's executing? What are they? And they listed those. I don't know, 26 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
But you can't go to your executive team and say, what functions would you like your PMO to deliver? Because they'll look at you and say, well, I don't know. Well, how about methodology? You want to deliver methodology? I don't care. Just deliver me the value. Do you want us to, staff that, to manage the resources in the PMO? Well, of course I want you to manage the resource. Why are you even asking me that? The question has to be, what value do you want? In order to know what value you will ask the executives about, you have to know what value the functions can deliver. So if you look at and I'm picking numbers out of the air here, if you look at the 36 functions that a PMO can be involved in, each of those functions can deliver value. Value can be delivered by one or more functions. A function can deliver one or more values. For you data people out there, that's a many-to-many relationship, which means it's not simple.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a function and you say this function can deliver these 4 values, now let's look at the next function. There's 6 values. Oh, 2 of them are the same as the other function we just looked at. You come up with a list of values. Let's say it's 42. Not a lot more than the functions, but they're completely different things. So you go to your executive team and you say, here's a list of values. What are the top 5 for you? Because we know that a PMO can deliver these values. And we also know that we can't have you say you want all 42 of the values. You just can't do that. You have to start somewhere. And that's why you would say, tell me the top 5 that you are interested in. And you ask all of the executive team about it, and they choose different top 5s, but you come to a consensus and you say, well, here are the 5 values that we're going to work on. In order to deliver those 5 values, we must have these 8 functions in the PMO. The values are related to the functions. Then you set up your PMO with those functions, and you check to see if you're delivering that value. You then staff up at the beginning of the setup of the PMO. You staff up. In order to deliver this value, what kind of people do we need? Well, everybody's going to say, of course, you need project managers, you need business analysts, you need some database people, you need some, this, that, and the other thing. But you may find that the delivery of the values in the PMO have absolutely nothing to do with technical people. You may find, for example, that you need an expert in data analysis. You may find you need someone who can pump Power BI reports out a mile a minute. You need someone who can go talk to the executive team at their level, understanding their business, to help decide what it is that you want to deliver. Are they members of the PMO? Could be. Are they the kind of people you're used to dealing with? Maybe not. So what values will you deliver? What functions will you have? What staff do you need to deliver those functions? What skills do they need to deliver the functions? And you staff up your PMO based on that. And periodically you look and you say, how are these people doing? And this doesn't have anything to do with the human resources annual performance review. This has to do with the PMO, the functions they're delivering, the values they're delivering, the people who are delivering them. And you're going to rate them on 1 to 10 periodically and decide, can you improve? Yes or no? How will we help you improve? Do you need mentoring? Do you need coaching? Do you need training? And now you're developing the skills in your PMO. So let's say you're successful. You've delivered all the value that the executives said were their top 5. Well, what do you do now? Declare a success and have a party? Well, you can do that. But the next thing is, great. Now they've seen the value you've delivered with those functions that you set up, the 8 functions. What about all the other functions a PMO can do? So you survey again. You say, here's the value. First of all, you check to see if you're actually delivering the value that they asked for in the first place. And hopefully the answer is yes. But then you say, okay, we've delivered these 5 values, or you agree that we are delivering these 5 values. Let's start looking at the other values that a PMO could deliver. What's your next top 5? Or maybe you say the next top 2. Or let's pick one and focus on that. I don't know. But you start to evolve your PMO to deliver more functions so that more value accrues. But the very key point here is it's value people want. There's nothing worse than delivering something in an excellent way that nobody wants.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, Mike. I have seen a lot of PMOs thinking that they are doing a great job. In reality, they might be doing a great job based on their own expectations, right? But it's not what the business is looking for. And that's why you start seeing the business bypassing them, because they think they can get things done more quickly without engaging the PMO, right? And
Mhm.
oh, it's too much compliance or too much paperwork, or these guys don't understand our business. So your approach is really nice, because you're saying the PMO leader has to really understand the needs of the business, right? And design the PMO to meet the needs of the business first. And everything else that you need in your PMO, how many people you need, the tools you need, the dashboards, the processes, and all that will come from what your business needs from the PMO, right?
And there's another point I'd like to make. First of all, if you don't ask your executives what value they want delivered, you will never know. First thing,
Yeah,
ask. Second
yeah,
thing is, what are you asking? Make sure you're asking questions about the value, not about the functions. And, could an executive say, yeah, I want this delivered by the PMO. It's not in the list of values and it doesn't relate to a function. Do you say no? Well, of course not. You look at the value and think, well, that's actually the same as one of these other values here. It's delivered by that function. So can we agree on that? Or you say, you're absolutely right. The PMO should deliver this value, and they could deliver this value if we set up this function. We agree we're going to look. But generally speaking, when you take 200 people, whatever the number was, 150, who have been running PMOs globally, and you look at the value they think their PMO delivers, that list is pretty solid. The other point I want to make is that we often talk about PMO types. What type of PMO are you going to set up? Everybody says the best type of PMO to set up is the strategic PMO. Nobody will argue with that. That's the best PMO ever. Strategic. Why? Because you're delivering all this stuff the executives want. You're delivering their strategy. What could be better? Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Delivering something nobody asked for and doing a great job of it is useless. It's possible that your organization doesn't want you to set up a strategic PMO. Maybe your organization wants you to set up an operational PMO, which means the PMO will manage projects that people in operations use, the products of which people use. So maybe you have an operational PMO. How many types of PMOs are there? Doesn't matter. What type of PMO are you setting up? Doesn't matter. What matters is what value have your executive team said they want? And it could be others than executive. I don't want to go there right now, but did your executive team say they wanted these top 5 values? That's what they agreed on. That's what you deliver. Does that PMO have a name now? Maybe not. Maybe it's strategic PMO and it's operational PMO and it's some other kind of PMO. And there are like 3 PMO types in there. The key here is that every PMO is different. You cannot compare one PMO to another and say, this one's better than that one. So forget about that PMO type concept and focus on value for your executives in your organization.
Okay, that's excellent, Mike. Mike, we have only 3 minutes left here, right? So I'm going to ask you one final question here. So if I'm setting up my PMO today, right, brand new in the job, or I just want to revamp my PMO, change the approach, deliver more value to my business, right? What would be the top 3 or top 4, top 5 things that you would say that, Bruno, take these steps and you are going to most likely be successful in your PMO journey?
The very first thing is what I just said. Get the values, understand the values a PMO can deliver, and ask your executive team what they want. Keep it small, deliver a small piece of that first, and then the next year go deliver some more of it. That's the first step. Understand what your executive team want. I don't know if I'll have 4 or not, but the second thing is this isn't about methodology. It's nothing to do with methodology. Choose your way of working. Agile, hybrid, waterfall. It's all out there in the ether. Do what's best for your projects and do what's best to deliver the value that your executives want. Following a methodology in a lockstep manner is no good for anybody. So is there a third? Is there a fourth thing? I would say make sure you have a good team. You cannot hire the best team. It's not going to happen. Hire the best people that you can, whether they're internal to your organization, whether they're consultants that you're going to have in the interim, but make sure people have the skills. If they don't have the skills, get them the skills. It's training, it's coaching, it's mentoring. It's making sure everybody is aware of the processes involved at least some general level. And lastly, I would say, don't micromanage. Get the best people you can, train them as well as you can, help them develop as well as you can, and let them do their job. Give them creativity and let them go to it. Manage at the higher level.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that, Mike. No, thank you so much, Mike. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I always learn new things from you. So, thank you for making the time to talk to me and talk to everyone who joined us today, Mike. For everyone who joined us today, I'm going to be sharing some resources about what Mike said about the PMO value ring, the benefits realization management, or benefits management from PMI as well. I have some good resources to share as well. But Mike, you are on LinkedIn. You are very active on LinkedIn. Are you okay if people reach out to you on LinkedIn to
of course, yeah. Feel free.
And,
yep.
Okay.
Mike Frenette.
Okay.
I'll share
Mike. I'll share your LinkedIn page as well. And thanks everyone for joining us today. There will be other webinars coming up soon, and I will be sharing the topics. And I hope to see you all at some point joining us. But thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again, Mike. It was a pleasure to talk to you again.
And if you want to send me Q&A we didn't get to, I'm happy to try to respond.
Excellent. Yes, okay. Let's do that. All right.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Bruno. Good to see you in a way. Sue, I know you're back there. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Mike. Bye, everyone.